Hey, it's Tony here, and today I'm going to show you some processing steps of a Seestar S50 image or images that were combined into a mosaic. The images were captured using N.I.N.A, and then the mosaic was created using Siril. And so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to show you the mosaic finished stacked image. And that's already opened up here in Siril. And so the first thing you'll notice is it's really dark, and that's because I'm in linear mode view here. And so if I go into auto stretch view, and this is just a viewing mode. And the first thing you may notice is, yikes, why is this image so green? And that's because we need to do a few processing steps on the Nebula. The first thing I like to do is you'll notice that the mosaic is made up a series of tiles. You can just see the outlines here that was stacked together using Siril. So I want to go ahead and first and foremost, let's do a crop of the image. So in Windows, I'm going to hold down my left mouse button and drag. And let's do a crop right around here, and then right click and crop. So now we've cropped the image. And the next thing I want to do is do a background correction. So this is in the case of where the illumination of the object may have some bright edges or bright gradients. And so you notice here, even on the left-hand side, I see a bit of slight brightness here. And so I'm going to go into Tools and, I'm going to go into Scripts and Python Scripts, Processing, and I'm going to open up GraXpert AI here. I'm going to run the script, and it will bring up a dialog box for GraXpert. I'm going to leave everything at default in GraXpert. I'm going to do a background extraction. I'm going to click on Apply. It will take a few seconds for that to complete. And you can see straight away now the image has slightly better colors. And so let's go ahead and minimize that dialog. And the next thing I want to do is go into and do a plate solve. And what the plate solve does is it simply tells Siril, gives it some information about the capture parameters and the object that was captured. And so if I go into Tools, Astrometry, and Image Plate Solve, it brings up a dialog box. And you can see that the Siril has picked up some information about the Seestar S50, the focal length, the pixel size in the camera. I'm just going to go ahead and accept all the defaults here and just click OK. And you'll see here that it's now saved that information here on the left-hand side. And so Siril now knows a little bit more about the image that we're looking at. And this is important when we go to the next step, which is we're going to do a color calibration. So I'll go to Image Processing, Color Calibration, and Spectrophotometric Color Calibration. And so it too brings up a dialog. Now, the Iris Nebula is a reflection nebula. And so I didn't use the Seestar light pollution filter. So on here, on this selection here, I'm just going to select the default UV IR block filter that the Seestar has. And you notice here, I've selected the Seestar camera. It is a one-shot color camera. And I'm just going to click on OK. And once I do that, it takes a few seconds, and you see straight away, we've got a slightly, I would say, bluer image has now appeared after these processing steps. And the next thing I want to do is if I zoom in a little bit, you'll see that there's a little bit of noise here from this capture. I only captured, let's see here, it'd be about 3 hours total across all these tiles. It wasn't a huge amount of capture time. Hence you see some of this little bit of this noise appearing. And so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into GraXpert, and I'm going to go to Processing, GraXpert, and I'm going to do a denoise process. So that brings up the GraXpert dialog again. This time for the operation, I'm going to select denoising, and I'll just leave the defaults as is. I'm going to click on Apply. Now this one is a bit more intensive on the graphics processing unit in my computer. I've got a fairly powerful PC, that I work with. And you can see that the processing, therefore, is moving on at a pretty rapid clip in terms of doing the denoise process. It only takes about 30 seconds for this particular image to complete. And you see it's almost done and complete. I'm going to go ahead and close this. And if I zoom in using my mouse wheel in Windows, and if I do a before denoise and then an after denoise, you see that GraXpert is doing somewhat of a nice job in terms of the processing. The next thing I want to do is go ahead and do what's called a stretch. Stretching is basically optimizing the brightness and the contrast of the image. And first I'm going to go into linear mode or linear view. So now everything goes completely dark again. That's okay because we haven't done any stretching yet. So now I'm going to go into scripts and let's choose Python scripts and VeraLux. And I'm going to choose the Hypermetric Stretch of VeraLux. Run the script. It too will bring up a dialog box. Here it is. And you can see here, I can select the Seestar S50 as my sensor profile. And then I can also do a live preview. So that brings up this screen here. And I think I'm just going to accept all the defaults. So if I do auto calc here, that kind of optimizes the brightness and the contrast for me. So if I zoom in a little bit, you can see it's kind of brought out some of the details, if you will, in the nebula. So I'm going to click on process, give that a few seconds, close it. And now if I hold down my control button and left mouse button, I can drag the image. And you see we bring up some nice details out of the nebula. One other thing we can try is try and bring out a bit more detail here in the nebula. And there's another script. So if I go to scripts, Python scripts, processing, and go to VeraLux here. And I'm going to choose this VeraLux Revela. So click on that, or Revela, however you want to pronounce it. And then I'm going to zoom in using my mouse wheel. I'm going to drag these sliders. I'm going to do the first one. Let's go about midway. And you see there, straight away, it brought out a bit more contrast in the image. And I'm going to slide the structure a little bit as well over. So it's finished the processing. If I hold down the space bar, so this is before, release the space bar after. So I kind of like how that's starting to look here. So let's go ahead and click on process. And so now we've got the image looking in a pretty nice shape. If I zoom in just here on the background, you do see kind of maybe some noise elements in the background, and we'll address that in a few moments. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to save this image as a 16-bit TIFF file because I want to show you some processing steps in Photoshop. So let's go here, save it as a TIFF file, and let's call it processed on the end so I know which one. Click on save, brings up a dialog box, choose 16-bit, and this is important for Photoshop to choose 16-bit TIFF. Click on save, and it's saved that image. So now let's go into Photoshop. I'm going to show you using Photoshop, but by any means, you can do these similar steps in GIMP, in Affinity. I just happen to use Photoshop because I have a subscription to Adobe Creative Cloud. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to open up the TIFF image that we had. And I'm going to zoom in a little bit here. And let's just move that tab over. I'm going to zoom in a little bit here and kind of show you the next steps that I'm going to try to accomplish. So you see this sort of like mottling here and this mottling here. That's almost like a bit of noise that we're seeing in the background. And again, it wasn't a very long exposure time total that I used for Seestar. So how do we get around that? I'm going to go ahead and first of all, I'm going to select the background layer here and then select ctrl+J to copy that background layer. And then I'm going to go up to channels here in Photoshop. And I'm going to see that it says this RGB here. I'm going to hold down the control button and clicked RGB. What this has done magically in Photoshop is it selected all the highlights in the image. And so I'm now going to go ahead and select the inverse because I want the background to be selected. So in Photoshop, if I do Control-Shift-I, it's now selected the background. And a few things that we want to do here is go ahead and go back to Layers. And I'm going to do Ctrl-J. And all I've copied now is the background. And so what I'm going to do now is go into Filter, Camera Raw Filter in Adobe. And it will bring up a dialog box, as you see here. And I'm going to scroll down in ACR, down to the Details section. And I'm going to do a huge noise reduction. I'm going to really slide it over here, take out all the detail. Same for the color noise. Take out all the detail, and then click on OK. And can you see what it's done? It's really smoothed out the background and some of the nebula as well. To my eyes, it's kind of like really overly smoothed out. But what you can do is on the opacity here, if I drag this all the way to 0, that's basically a before. And if I just drag it very slightly over, not too much, maybe around 25%, you can see I kind of smoothed out that background a little bit as well. And I have smoothed out the nebula area also, you may notice. And if you didn't want that to happen in the selection stage, you could just take the lasso tool and deselect around the nebula if you wanted to. And so if I now do click this top layer here, and I'm going to do Control-Alt-Shift-E, that copies the visible layer. And now I'm going to go back into Adobe Camera Raw, brings up the dialog box again, and I'm going to use the mouse wheel to kind of zoom in a little bit. And let's increase the saturation of the image. So I'm going to go really crazy here, all the way to the right. And you see that's way unnatural looking, way oversaturated. So I'm going to back off here. Let's take it to about 20. We'll bring out a little bit of the colors in the stars, not too much. On the vibrance, we can also go all the way to the right here. And you see the chrome effect is just really crazy. So let's just back that off to about 10. And then the other one is clarity that I used to use. If I go all the way to the right here, you can see it really boosts the contrast way too much. It looks totally unnatural. So I'm going to take that just to about 5. And just click on OK. And we're done. You can see that's actually, that processing is kind of brought out the nebula nicely in Siril. We've kind of smoothed out the background a little bit from the noise. You can still see the nebula region, that sort of darkness and the brightness. The colors of the stars look nice. And then you could just go ahead, if you wanted to, do image or layer, flatten the image in Photoshop, and then go ahead and save that as a JPEG file or TIFF file, whatever you prefer. So hopefully these are very simple processing steps to get you started using Siril and using Affinity or GIMP or Photoshop to do some processing of your Seestar images and your Seestar mosaic images. Thank you for your time. Thank you.